Hey everyone, welcome to the video. My name is Jimmy and I've got some leftover brisket. One of my favorite things to do with leftover brisket is to make some brisket chili. So that's what I'm going to do in this video for you guys. Today I'm going to show you how I make my brisket chili. So the ingredients I'm going to use to make this chili is some nice, beautiful smoked brisket. Look at that. That's some amazing smoked brisket. Then I'm going to use some hamburger meat because I don't have a whole lot of brisket. So I'm going to go ahead and use about a pound of hamburger meat, a jalapeno, some garlic, a white onion, you could use yellow onion, a bell pepper, about 2 cups of beef broth. I'm going to use 28 ounces of tomato puree, some tomato paste. For the spices, I'm going to use some cumin, some bay leaf, some garlic powder, onion powder, chipotle, and some chili powder. And I'm going to use kidney beans and pinto beans. I'm using 2 cans of each of those drained. So just a quick disclaimer, I know that putting beans in chili is a very highly debated subject. I like beans in my chili. If you don't want to put beans in your chili, don't put them. If you want to try this recipe and leave the beans out, by all means, go ahead and leave out the beans. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is get my mise en place. So I'm going to chop my onion, chop my bell pepper, mince my jalapeno, and mince 3 cloves of the garlic. One thing I like to do is cut the little stem off the end of the garlic. Okay, that looks good on the garlic. I'm going to move on to the jalapeno, which I'm going to pretty much mince that up too. So a little trick that I do, I used to cut the end of my jalapeno off and try to de-seed it, but what I do now is just shave some meat off of the outside. So just go around it, cut a piece off, turn it, 1/4 of a turn. Actually, we'll put the flat side down, cut some more off, turn it again, cut some more off, turn it again, cut some more off. So then you're just left with basically the seeds stuck in there. So I'm just going to use these 4 pieces right here. I'm going to julienne them and then mince them up really fine. And there we have it, some minced jalapenos, minced garlic, and then chopped bell pepper and onion. So now that I've got all my ingredients prepped, it's time to start putting this chili together. So I'm going to be using my favorite 7.5 quart Dutch oven to cook this chili. First thing I want to do is heat up some olive oil so I can start sauteing the vegetables. It's going to do about a tablespoon of olive oil. Now that my oil's good and hot, I'm going to go ahead and put in my bell pepper and onion. Gotta love that sizzle. I'm not gonna put in my garlic and jalapeno quite yet. I'm gonna just saute this for a few minutes. Now that the onions and peppers are starting to sweat, I'm gonna go ahead and put in my jalapenos and garlic. I don't want to cook this garlic very long because I don't want it to burn. It can turn bitter when you cook it too long also. Definitely don't want that to happen. This smells unbelievable right now. Might as well go ahead and give it a little salt and pepper. We're going to season this along the way several times, so for now this is going to be the first round. Just some salt and pepper. Alright, that looks good. Ooh, it smells even better with the salt and pepper in there. I'll be glad when they invent smell-o-vision so you guys can experience this too. Okay, my vegetables are pretty much cooked, so now I'm going to go ahead and pull them out and set them aside. Alright, that looks good. Doesn't have to be perfect. Can have a little bit of residual left in there. That's just fine. Now I'm going to go ahead and throw in my hamburger meat. Sometimes when I make this chili, I use all brisket, but in this case, I don't quite have enough brisket, so I'm going to supplement with some hamburger meat. May as well go ahead and give my hamburger meat a little salt and pepper. Beautiful. I'm going to break this meat up while it cooks, but I don't want to break it up crazy small. I want to have kind of big chunks of meat in there. Since I'm not using chili meat or stew meat, this has a tendency to get really small and kind of disintegrate into the sauce if you're not careful. Just going to give that a few moments to cook. This meat is producing some juice. It's not really producing much fat because it's pretty lean meat, but it's producing some juice, so I'm going to let that cook off. Okay, now that my meat is pretty much done, most of that juice is evaporated, I'm just going to make a little well right in the middle, and I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of the tomato paste in there. That's 1. That's 2. Maybe a little more. That looks pretty good right there. Now I'm just going to sort of cook this down in this little, in the middle part, this little well I made. It's okay if some of the meat kind of gets mixed in there with it. It's fine. This is a one-pot dish anyway. Everything's going in the same pot anyway, so what does it matter, right? All right, that looks good right there. I'm going to add my vegetables back in. Get everything nice and mixed up. Man, I thought it was smelling good before. This is really smelling good now for sure. All right, beautiful. Everything looks nice and mixed up. So now I'm going to grab my beef stock and pour it in. I'm putting in about 2 cups of beef stock. Get that all nice and mixed up. Now I'm just going to let that come to a simmer. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and put in some of my seasonings. I'm going to put in about half of a tablespoon of the onion powder, or maybe that's more like 1 tablespoon. About the same amount for the garlic powder. Just under 1 tablespoon. I'm basically just building layers of flavor. I'm going to do just a little bit of the cumin because cumin's real strong. You don't want to put a whole lot, probably like 1/4 of a tablespoon. Just a little dash or 2 of the chipotle powder because that stuff's pretty hot. And we've already got the jalapenos in there. We'll put a little extra salt and pepper. And we're starting to simmer real nice too. Now for the chili powder, I'm going to go ahead and put, at this stage of the game, I'm going to go ahead and put 2 tablespoons of chili powder. I'm going to put more later as we cook, but for now, just 2. We get everything nice and mixed up. I'm going to throw in 2 bay leaves. At this point, I'm ready to add my tomato puree. 28 ounces of tomato puree. Just gonna put it right on in there. Let me get that all mixed up. All right, beautiful. Now I'm gonna get my brisket ready. This brisket was pretty big chunks, so I'm gonna go ahead and sort of cut it up. It'll kind of fall apart as I cook it, but I need to help it along the way a little bit. Don't want to have just massive chunks in there. If you guys want to see how I cook a brisket, you need to hit the subscribe button because I will be putting out a brisket video soon. Okay, that looks pretty good right there. I'm going to put it back in the bowl and bring it over to the pot. Okay, now I'm ready to just add the brisket in there. And all that good brisket fat, because you can't go wrong with brisket fat, right? Ah, look at that. Now, if you didn't want to add beans to your chili, I would say this is pretty much it. Now you let it simmer for a couple of hours and you're done. Well, we are gonna season it some more, but yeah, pretty much this would be all the ingredients you'd put in there besides more seasoning along the way. But since I'm adding beans to mine, I'm gonna go ahead and put my beans in. So let me grab my beans. All right, I'm just gonna put all those beans in there. Look at that, so much beans. I like a lot of beans. And this chili is already pretty thick. I'm probably going to have to add some water to it. Because it's pretty darn thick at this moment. If you've never had smoked brisket inside of a chili, man, you're in for a treat. This is something special. Okay, that looks good. I'm going to add about probably half a cup of water to it. Just so it's not quite so thick. You could add a little more beef broth, but it's already going to be so rich that I don't think I need any more beef broth. I think the water's going to be just fine. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put my second round of chili powder in there. I'm going to do 2 more tablespoons of chili powder. So it's going to make 4 tablespoons of chili powder, which I think is a 1/4 cup. But that's the total amount of chili powder that I put in this. From here, after I get it all mixed up, I'm just going to taste it to see how the salt and pepper level is, and I may add a little more salt and pepper. Very good. Okay, let me get a spoon so I can taste this. Just get a little bit of the juice. It's good. I think the salt level's great. Salt and pepper's fine. At this point, I think I just need to let it come to a simmer, and then I'm going to cover it and let it go. Okay, since it's starting to get nice and bubbly, I'm going to go ahead and put a lid on it. I'm just going to let it go for about an hour, but I am going to stir it every 5 or 10 minutes because if you don't, there's a big risk that it could stick and burn on the bottom. So I'm going to make sure that I stir it every 5 or 10 minutes. But for right now, with it being bubbly, I'm going to turn it down to a simmer and put the lid on it, and I'll bring you guys back in about an hour and we're going to see what it looks like. Here we go with the big reveal. Oh man, it does smell awesome. It's nice and thick. That meat's really broken down quite a bit. I'm going to let it simmer for about another 30 minutes and then it's going to be ready to eat. It's not quite ready yet. It's been going an hour, been simmering for an hour, but I like to let it go probably about an hour and a half so that the hamburger meat that I put in there is nice and tender and everything's nice and tender. All the flavors are nice and melded together. So that's what we're looking like. We're going to check it again in 30 minutes. It'll be ready to go. Okay guys, it's been simmering for about an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes and it's ready. I'll show you the big reveal here. Looks good. Give it a stir. I like to serve it over some rice with some grated cheese and some diced fresh onions. Maybe with a little sour cream. But this chili is ready to eat. This is some delicious chili and this is how I like to serve it, with some rice, a little bit of grated cheese, some diced onions, and maybe a little sour cream on there. Just like this right here. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you can catch all my future videos. I'll see you guys on the next one.